For years, I had one word for myself: lazy. And if I'm being honest, I wore that label like it was the truth. I read the books, I bought the planners, I downloaded the apps. Every Monday was a new revolution. I'd wake up with this surge of motivation, absolutely convinced that this was the week. This was the week I'd become one of those people, the 5 a.m. warriors who meditate, journal, and crush their most important work while the rest of us are still hitting snooze. And for a day, maybe two, it worked. I felt incredible, on fire. I felt superior. And no one really talks about this part because in those first couple days, you really believe you've changed. And then, like clockwork, Wednesday would hit, the alarm would go off, and that fire was gone. All I felt was a soul-crushing dread for the task ahead. Suddenly, alphabetizing my spice rack felt more important than the report due on Friday. Checking email for the 10th time felt productive, even though I knew it was just a way to avoid making that phone call I was terrified of. This was literally me, not once, not twice, over and over again. And I would fail every single time. Each failure was another brick in the wall of evidence that proved my deepest, darkest fear about myself. I just wasn't built for this. I lacked willpower. I was fundamentally, incurably lazy. The shame that followed was a weight that I couldn't shake. It was a vicious cycle. The worse I felt about procrastinating, the more I would procrastinate just to escape the feeling. And that part, that emotional spiral, that's what really traps you. It turns out all of it, the guilt, the shame, the self-blame, was built on a total lie. A complete misunderstanding of what procrastination really is. I thought it was a character flaw, a moral failure, but it's not. My brain wasn't lazy, it was stuck. It was running a powerful, ancient, and predictable self-sabotage program. And breaking free didn't require more willpower or a new productivity hack. It required a counterintuitive strategy that works with your brain's wiring, not against it. And it's a strategy that anyone, and I mean literally anybody, can use to take back control. The big lie and the brutal truth. The biggest lie we've all bought into is that procrastination is a time management problem. We are told that if we just get more organized, if we just find the right app, if we just adopt the just do it mentality, the problem will disappear. And if it's a simple switch you can just flick. But you and I both know it's not that simple. If it were, you would have solved it by now. You would have just done it. The fact that you can't is the entire problem. Telling a chronic procrastinator to just do it is like telling someone with a broken leg to just walk it off. It's not just useless advice, it's insulting because it completely ignores the real injury. So here's the brutal truth. Procrastination is not a time management problem. It's an emotion management problem. That shift alone changed everything for me because the second I realized I wasn't managing time badly, I was managing discomfort badly. Everything started making more sense. You're not avoiding a task. You're avoiding the feeling that the task stirs up. Think about it. When do you procrastinate? Is it ever on things that you love to do? Of course not. You procrastinate on tasks that trigger negative feelings. Maybe the task is boring, and what you're really avoiding is the feeling of being understimulated. Maybe it's difficult, and you're avoiding the frustration and confusion. Maybe it's unstructured and vague, and you're avoiding the feeling of uncertainty. Or maybe, just maybe, it's something deeper. Maybe you're avoiding the feel of failure, the fear that you're going to pour your soul into something and it still won't be good enough, that you're going to be judged, and whew, that one hit me hard. Because I used to do this all the time, not because I didn't care, but because I cared so much that failing felt unbearable. So you put it off. Because if you rush it at the last minute, you have the perfect built-in excuse. Well, of course it's not my best work. I only had a day to do it. It's a brilliant unconscious strategy to protect your ego. At its core, procrastination is a coping mechanism. It's your brain's primitive knee-jerk reaction to protect you from discomfort. The moment you face a task that triggers stress, anxiety, or self-doubt, your brain's only mission is to make the bad feeling go away now. And what's the fastest way to kill the negative feeling tied to that task? Don't do the task. Instead, you pivot to something else that offers instant relief. Scrolling social media, watching a cat video, tidying your desk. Each one gives you a tiny hit of dopamine, that feel good chemical in your brain. It works. The bad feeling vanishes. This creates a simple, powerful, and dangerous lesson in your brain. Avoidance brings relief. So the next time you face that feeling, your brain screams even louder to run towards distraction. This isn't weakness. It's your brain's reward system working perfectly, just in the wrong direction. Your brain's self-sabotage loop. To really get why you can't just will your way out of this, you have to understand the war going on inside your head. It's a battle between two very different parts of your brain, the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. Think of your limbic system as your inner toddler. And honestly, that description is painfully accurate. It's one of the oldest, most powerful parts of your brain. It's entirely emotional, reactive, and only cares about how you feel right now. It runs on the pleasure principle. Seek pleasure, avoid pain. A key player here is the amygdala, your brain's threat detector. This almond-shaped structure is constantly scanning your world for danger. And here's the kicker. Your amygdala doesn't know the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and an intimidating quarterly report. To your amygdala, a threat is a threat. When you look at the report and think, this is overwhelming, or what if I screw this up? The amygdala sounds the alarm, danger. It hijacks your rational brain and triggers a fight, flight, or freeze response. Procrastination is the modern-day version of flight. You're running away. And no one really talks about how automatic this is. You think you're making a choice. A lot of the time your brain is reacting before you even realize what's happening. On the other side of the battlefield is your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain right behind your forehead. This is the CEO, the adult in the room. It's the recently evolved part of the brain, responsible for long-term planning, impulse control, and rational thought. Your prefrontal cortex is the part of you that understands that doing the unpleasant task now will lead to a better future. But here's the problem. In a high-stress moment, the toddler has a meltdown and the CEO gets locked out of the boardroom. The ancient lightning-fast emotional brain overpowers the newer, slower, more energy-hungry rational brain. The desperate need for immediate relief wins the tug of war. This battle is explained perfectly by a concept known as temporal discounting. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. Your brain is wired to value immediate rewards more than future ones. Let me ask you, would you rather have $100 today or $110 in a week? Most people grab the $100 today. Now, what if I asked you if you'd rather have $100 in 52 weeks or $110 in 53 weeks? Suddenly, waiting an extra week feels like nothing. You'd take the 110. That's temporal discounting. The reward for finishing your project, the relief, the praise, the accomplishment, is the $110 in 53 weeks. It's abstract and far away. But the reward for watching one more YouTube video, that's the $100 today. It's instant, it's certain, and your limbic system will scream for the immediate cash every single time. So let's get this straight. When you procrastinate, you're not lazy. You are caught in a biological loop. A task triggers a negative feeling. Your amygdala screams threat. Your limbic system demands immediate relief. And it hijacks your prefrontal cortex, sending you towards a distraction for a quick dopamine hit. This reinforces the entire pattern, making it a perfect self-perpetuating trap. The counterintuitive solution: rewiring your brain. So if willpower is useless against the ancient biological response, what's the answer? You have to stop fighting your brain and start working with it. The solution isn't more brute force discipline. The solution is to be smarter, more strategic, and believe it or not, a little kinder to yourself. That last part matters more than most people will ever realize, because shame does not fix procrastination. And I really wish somebody would have told me that sooner. The secret lies in a mind-blowing property of the brain called neuroplasticity. We used to think the brain was fixed, but now we know it can reorganize itself by forming new connections based on your actions. Think of your habits as paths in a forest. The more you use the path, the wider it gets until it becomes a superhighway. Right now, your procrastination path is a 6-lane interstate. The thought of a tough task leads instantly to avoidance. But here's the magic. You can build new paths. With intention and repetition, you can start clearing a new trail. A trail where the challenge task leads to a small, manageable action. Every time you take that new path, you make it a little bit clearer. Over time, that new trail can become your new default. You are not a procrastinator by destiny. You just have a well-practiced habit of procrastination. And habits can be rewired. That right there is the hope. Not fake, fluffy hope. Real hope. Because if it's a pattern, it can change. The reason most productivity advice fails is that it demands a heroic leap off of the procrastination highway. It tells you to write the book or run the marathon. These goals are so huge, they guarantee your amygdala will have a complete fucking meltdown, keeping you stuck on the old familiar road. The counterintuitive solution is to forget the giant leap. Instead, you're going to build a tiny, almost laughable small on-ramp to a new path. You're going to use neuroscience to make starting so easy that your brain's alarm system doesn't even notice. We're going to do this with 3 simple science-backed habits. These aren't about a life transformation overnight. They're about casting one small vote for a new you, one action at a time. Habit 1. Start ridiculously small. The first and most important rule for breaking the procrastination loop is to start ridiculously small. I don't mean work for an hour instead of 3. I mean so small it feels absurd. So small your brain doesn't even see it as a threat. I'm talking about taking an action that takes less than 2 minutes. And yes, it sounds almost too simple. And that's the point. Let's say you do want to write a book. The huge, terrifying goal is write a book. That's an amygdala nightmare. The typical advice is write for 30 minutes a day. Better? But for a chronic procrastinator, that 30-minute block is a mountain. The dread kicks in before you even open the laptop. The ridiculously small version? Open the document and write 1 sentence. That's it. Just 1. Could you write more? Of course. But the only thing you have to do to win the day is write that single sentence. For years, I told myself I was going to write a book. For years, I wrote nothing. The goal was so massive, it paralyzed me. So I made a new rule. 1 sentence a day. It felt pointless. It felt like a joke. But I did it. The next day, I did it again. Some days, that was it. 1 sentence. And I closed the laptop with a weird sense of victory. Other days, that 1 sentence bled into a paragraph or even a page. The magic wasn't the volume. It was the consistency. Months later, I had finished the draft. I didn't beat procrastination with willpower. I snuck past its defenses. And honestly, that's exactly what it felt like. Like I stopped trying to overpower myself and started outsmarting the pattern. Here's why this works. First, a tiny action doesn't trigger the amygdala's threat response. Write 1 sentence isn't scary. The bar is on the floor. There's no fear of failure. Second, completing a tiny action gives you a small win and a small hit of that dopamine. Your brain gets a reward. It starts building a new association. Taking a small action equals feels good. You are building a new reward loop to compete with the old avoidance loop. Third, this creates momentum. Action precedes motivation, not the other way around. You don't wait until you feel like writing. You write 1 sentence, and that tiny action can generate the feeling of motivation. So here's your first mission. Pick 1 task that you have been putting off. Now, what's that 2-minute version? If you want to go to the gym, your habit isn't workout. It's put on your workout clothes. If you want to clean your messy apartment, your habit isn't clean everything. It's put 1 dish in the dishwasher. If you want to meditate, your habit isn't meditate. It's sit on the cushion and take 1 deep breath. Commit to this ridiculously small action every day for 1 week. The goal isn't the outcome. The goal is to become a person who starts. You're laying the first stone of a new neural highway. Habit 2. Link, don't think. Once you've mastered starting small, the next step is to put it on autopilot. The biggest drain on your willpower isn't doing the thing. It's the endless daily debate about when or if you're going to do it. This is where the second strategy comes in: habit stacking. The concept, made by famous B.J. Fogg and James Clear, is brilliantly simple. You anchor your new tiny habit to a habit that's already unshakable, something you do every day without fail, like pouring your coffee, brushing your teeth, or eating lunch. The formula is after or before current habit, I will, new micro habit. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, I will write one sentence. After I brush my teeth at night, I will lay out my gym clothes for tomorrow. Immediately after I finish lunch, I will put one dish in the dishwasher. For the longest time, I could not get myself to exercise consistently. I tell myself I'll go for a walk later, but later is where good intentions go to die. And wow, if that doesn't explain half of my life. It requires another decision, and my limbic system always had a better idea for later. So I tried habit stacking. My most bulletproof habit is obviously eating lunch. I never forget to eat lunch. New rule: immediately after I finish my last bite of lunch, I will put on my shoes and walk just for 2 minutes. The first few days felt weird, but soon it became automatic. Lunch ends, bell rings, shoes go on, no decision. It was just the next thing in the sequence. Those 2-minute walks often turned into 10 or 20. But the habit wasn't go for a walk. The habit was put on my shoes after lunch. The rest was a bonus. This works because your existing habit acts as a powerful cue for the new one. You're hijacking a neural pathway that's already built. You're just adding a new stop on the train that runs every single day. You can supercharge this by bracketing the task with an immediate reward. For instance, after I pour my coffee, I will write one sentence, and then I get to drink my coffee. The reward creates a tight feedback loop. Cue, routine, reward. This is the fundamental architecture of every habit you have. By consciously designing it, you're teaching your brain to crave this new routine. So here's your second mission. Take your micro habit, find an unshakable daily habit to stack into it, use the after, before, current habit, I will, new habit formula. Then give yourself an immediate tiny reward. Do this for 7 days. You are reducing the friction of starting to almost zero. Habit 3, stop early and celebrate. This third habit is the most counterintuitive of them all. And it may just be the secret weapon for making this last. The rule is this: stop early and celebrate. We've been taught that productivity is about grinding, pushing to the limit, leaving it all on the field. For a procrastinator, this is a recipe for disaster. Why? Because of a psychological principle called the peak end rule. The peak end rule states that we don't remember the experience based on the average everyday moment. We remember it based on its most intense point, the peak, and how it ended. Think about that. If you forced yourself to work until you were completely exhausted and miserable, what does your brain remember? It remembers the end, that feeling of misery and burnout. The next time you think about that task, your amygdala will scream, "No, not that again. That felt awful." You are poisoning the well. You are teaching your brain to hate the work. This was such a huge shift for me because I used to think stopping early meant I was slacking. Like if I wasn't drained, it didn't count. The counterintuitive fix is to stop while you're still ahead. Stop before you get tired. End on a high note. I used to do this at the gym. I'd push myself to total failure on every set and crawl out feeling defeated. I dreaded going back. So I tried a new strategy. I'd do a few strong sets and leave while I still felt good, while I still had energy. It felt like cheating, but a crazy thing happened. The next day, I actually wanted to go back. My brain remembered the feeling of being strong and energized, not depleted. This applies to any task. Set a timer for just 5 to 10 minutes. When the timer goes off, stop. Even if you're in the zone, in fact, especially if you're in the zone, that feeling of I could do more is the key. You want to bottle that feeling. It makes you excited to come back tomorrow. You're wiring your brain to associate the task with success, not exhaustion. The second part is just as vital. You must celebrate the win. I mean, literally celebrate. When you finish your one sentence or your 2-minute walk, you have to create a moment of genuine positive emotion. This is for your brain. It could be clenching your fist and whispering, yes. It could be a little victory dance. It might feel silly, but this is a direct shot of dopamine that tells your brain, that thing we just did, that was awesome. Let's do it again. And yes, it feels ridiculous at first. Do it anyways. Then you track it. Get a calendar and put a big X on every day that you do it. This visual proof of your winning streak is a powerful motivator. You're not just looking at a calendar. You're looking at evidence that you are no longer the person you thought you were. You're building a new identity, one X at a time. Here's your third mission. For the next week, when you do your stacked micro habit, set a 5-minute timer. When it goes off, stop. Then immediately celebrate. Make it real. And mark your win on the calendar. You are hacking the peak end rule to make your brain fall in love with showing up. These 3 habits, starting ridiculously small, linking it to a routine, and stopping early to celebrate, are not just tips. They are a systematic method for rewiring your procrastination loop in your brain. Now, I want to hear from you. This is an experiment we do together. In the comments below, tell me which one of these habits you are going to commit to for the next 7 days. Is it the 1-sentence rule? Stacking a habit on your morning coffee? Or stopping early? Declare it. Making it public makes it real. And if this approach to working with your brain instead of against it makes sense to you, subscribe to the channel. We're just getting started. So reinforcing the system. These 3 habits are the core of the system, but you can turbocharge them by adding 2 final layers, your environment and your mindset. First, environment design. Your brain always follows the path of least resistance. Right now, that path probably leads straight to your phone, to the TV remote, or the pantry. These aren't just distractions. They are environmental cues that trigger the old avoidance loop. The goal is to add friction to your bad habits and remove friction from your good ones. If your phone is the escape hatch, don't rely on willpower. Put it in another room before you start your 5-minute session. If you want to put on running shoes after lunch, don't bury them in a closet. Put them right by the kitchen table where you can't miss them. Make the right choice, the easy choice. The second layer is your mindset, specifically how you talk to yourself. Remember, procrastination is an emotional problem fueled by shame and guilt. That's why the most powerful strategy is to practice self-compassion. And no one really talks about this part either. You cannot shame yourself into safety. You cannot bully yourself into consistency. When you slip up, and you will slip up, the old you would start the beatdown. See, I knew it. I'm just lazy. This self-criticism just pours more fuel on the fire of negative emotion, making you more likely to procrastinate tomorrow. Self-compassion is the antidote. It's treating yourself like you would a good friend. When you miss a day, you don't attack, you acknowledge it, recognize that perfection is a fantasy, and simply ask, okay, how can I make this just a tiny bit easier tomorrow? Studies show that people with higher self-compassion are less prone to procrastination because they don't get trapped in the crippling cycle of guilt and avoidance. Forgive your past self. You weren't lazy. You were using a faulty coping mechanism. It was the only tool you had. Now you have better tools. This isn't about letting yourself off the hook. It's about creating the emotional safety required for real change. For so long, I believed the story that I was lazy, that my inability to be consistent was a defect in my character. I thought the answer was more grit, more hustle, more willpower. I was fighting the wrong war, and maybe you are too. Procrastination is not a moral failing. It's a biological tug of war between the part of your brain that wants long-term success and the part that demands comfort right now. For many of us, the comfort-seeking part has been winning for a very, very long time. But it doesn't have to be that way. You don't need to become a productivity machine overnight. You just need to be more strategic. You have to understand the loop, then gently, consistently build a new one. By starting ridiculously small, you sneak past your brain's fear detector. By stacking your habit, you put starting on autopilot. And by stopping early and celebrating, you rewire your brain to associate your work with victory, not defeat. You are not your patterns. You are the architect of your patterns. The story that you're a procrastinator is just that, a story. And you have the power to write a new one, not with one huge heroic effort, but with a single sentence, with a 2-minute walk, with one small celebrated win repeated day after day. You are not lazy. You simply have a habit of avoidance. And today, you learned exactly how to start breaking it. The journey doesn't start tomorrow, it starts now with the next ridiculously small action that you decide to take.